book discussion, A Mind at Play, How Claude Shannon Created the Information Age. It's a biography by Claude Shannon, about Claude Shannon. It's not an autobiography. And a really interesting book, I think, very well written. It's very simple. This is not a very technical book, but I think it actually is unbelievably valuable, particularly for people like me. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a computer scientist, but I am very interested in the field and I'm an investor. So for me to understand the basic fundamental ideas that Claude Shannon gave us, gave humanity basically, I think that's really valuable. And I think that's what this biography does. It also explains a little bit his life, his wife, the family, things like that, his hobbies and things like that, which is nice. But I think fundamentally it's really about his contributions to what's called information theory. And I think there's really three interesting or fundamental things in the book that I thought I took away. Two are sort of scientific and one is just professional about investing. This is not even on podcast. It's April 23rd, 2026. This is Krim Delco. For the year, we are down 11%. The market's up 4%. We're underperforming by 15%. I think the first thing that Claude Shannon gave us was his math thesis, apparently the most important math thesis of the 20th century. What he did there, he combined Boolean algebra with circuit theory. So he took a concept like a abstract concept, a mathematical concept, Boolean algebra, which is the idea that, for example, 0 plus 0 is 1, 0 plus 1 is 0, 1 plus 0 is 0, 1 plus 1 is 1. So this would be an AND gate. And I already gave away basically the innovation here, which is the idea, this concept that you do logic with binary digits or bits as Claude Shannon coined the term. So you can do logic with bits, you can do a certain amount of transformations, mathematical transformations based on certain axioms like typical math. And you can use that to then encode this logic in actual physical circuits. And when Claude Shannon did this, there wasn't even a transistor wasn't even invented. So this was really, this was vacuum tubes and things like that. But it was the beginning of information processing. The second big idea is what is actually information? That information is really about reducing entropy. So information is or communication, and there's a bit of an issue with nomenclature here. So communication is me sending a message to another person and that person being able to predict what that message means. That's what communication means. And what Shannon did, he formalized what it actually means to have noise and then the inverse of noise, which is a message in a channel. He gave, and this is really well done by the author, he explained how communication started, at least sort of the more modern communication, with Morse code and undersea cables between the UK and America, and how that was very noisy, very difficult, and very distorted, and all that. And then people thought, well, the communication is just a sort of a try and error type thing, where you have to shout louder, you have to have more bandwidth, but it's kind of like almost, it's haphazard. And Shannon's contribution was, no, it's not. You can actually mathematically define what is a channel, what is noise, and what is not noise, and you can engineer a communication channel that actually works. So this is, I think, fundamentally what he brought to the table. Now, of course, this was just the beginning of an explosive science that today we will call computer science in general, maybe more practically, engineering, computer, and computer science. So EECS, that's probably the field that has come out of that. So it's not just about, algorithms and programs and some software engineering, but it's also about hardware. It's about computer architecture. It's the whole stack that matters. And each part of the stack is based on this fundamental idea that information is the ability to predict from a channel what is being said. I think one of the biggest insights I had from the book is that you have, you can add redundance to a message and thus increase the predictability of the message. So you can say, for example, I am going home, and you can say that 3 times in a row. And from that pattern, the receiver can then decipher that you're saying something, even though it might be very noisy, because you have this redundance, you have this repetitive pattern in the message that can be detected and contrasted with noise, which is completely random. So this is the idea. It's not very technical. Actually, there's a lot more technicality to this whole endeavor than what the author wanted to convey. But I think he kept it light and therefore very readable and very approachable. So I think that's really beautiful. And then, last thing I want to say about this book is just Shannon's approach towards investing, which is interesting. And this is not related to science or information theory. This is just a common observation, and that is that you have this concept of trading in the stock market based on patterns and mathematical concepts and things along those lines. And Shannon did work in those fields. He did contribute to the field of algorithmic trading, but his actual contribution to investing is exactly the opposite, that he stuck with very few high stakes, highly concentrated investments that he did in technology, Teledyne, HP, and Qualcomm. I think Motorola, I'm not sure about Qualcomm, but the founder of Qualcomm was, his graduate student. So there's a bit of that going on. I think that's pretty important for us here at Orange Capital Partners. It's more important than you might think. This is not just an anecdote. We're very serious about this. This is our livelihood. This is how we invest. This is what we do. We concentrate and we stick with highly technical, deep tech investments. For better or for worse, we have, let's say right now, as we speak, we're sort of in the FOMO period of investing, and that's very important. The purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund. And we're right now in the FOMO period because we're the fear of missing out, right? We're not invested in let's say AMD and other chip stocks, even though we are of course fully aware of what's going on in the AI space and how inference is the big bottleneck and the big sort of levered play now of AI. We're invested in Tesla and Nvidia, and we're down 11% for the year while the market's up 5%, and we're highly underperforming stocks like AMD or Intel. And now Intel, I would say that's something we could have probably bought because we were invested in Intel in the past, but we were just so burnt with it, although we got out on time, but still, it was just such a frustrating investment, such a really, really frustrating investment that we stayed away from it. And we shouldn't, because about 3-4 months ago, somewhere I picked up at a conference or at an interview, I forgot where, that somebody said the CPU is back. We need more CPUs. I think even Elon Musk said that. And I mean, this should have been a wake-up call. Like, if the CPU is back, then that means Intel is going to go from worthless to very valuable. And that's what happened. I mean, today the stock's up more than 20%. So there's definitely something going on there, and we missed that. But other than that, I would say in the long run, the stock market's a weighing machine. And what we weigh is quality of management, deep tech, commitment, and scale. The amount of scale, the amount of rapid iteration, those are the two mounts that we highly focus on. Those are the kinds of mounts that we care. There's other mounts, brand, people invest in Ferrari and things like that. We invest in scale and high iteration, high rapid iteration. Those are the two things that are very difficult to copy, that bring market power and therefore also wealth creation with it. So to summarize the book, how Claude Shannon invented the information age, A Mind at Play. It's a great book. I recommend it. It's well written. And what I like most about the author is how he approaches some of the most important contributions of Claude Shannon in a very human, very sort of approachable way. The combination of Boolean algebra with circuit theory and the idea that a message is about predicting the information in a message in a channel, and that you can actually engineer that with things like randomness and predictability and patterns. You can also unengineer it, of course, if you're in the crypto business. But this whole idea of crypto and information and communication theory, I think it's a big field right now. It's still, cybersecurity and all that is part of that. And I think Claude Shannon was the founder of this, and the author does a really good job in explaining why that's the case. Thank you.